Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Art Studio and happy Valentine's Day. We are live here on YouTube and talking to you about everything that's happening in the classes this week in our third week of February. Why is my camera out of focus? Is it a Monday? I mean, Super Bowl Monday. This is a good game. I like it when they're close. I didn't think they were really great commercials, though. It was a little disappointing. Not one that I was like, oh my gosh, that was awesome. But what are you gonna do? Maybe you saw some really good ones and I missed it. I was playing on my phone a little bit. So if I missed any good commercials that I should have appreciated better, let me know in the comments and I'll go look them up on YouTube or something. I brought a brayer today and I brought some ink because I am gonna demo some printmaking for you to show you what the kids are doing in class this week in our multimedia session. And otherwise, I've got some examples here. I pulled some artwork from last week so you can kind of see what's going on. I got some Post-its. Yeah, let's go everything. So my name is Allison Jensen. I'm the owner of Orange Easel School of Art, and I'm here on a Monday morning to tell you everything that's happening in all of the art classes in the Orange Easel Studios. So if you have a kid that takes classes with us, how much you want to bet this is YouTube? Yeah, it's YouTube. They're like, Orange Easel's live. But if you have a kid that takes classes with us, this is where you can get information on what actually happens behind those classroom doors and what they're actually working on, okay? So I'm going to go through all the classes, our sewing classes, our multimedia classes. Ooh, I forgot to grab the sewing projects. I might run and go grab them. You could go on a field trip with me. We'll go and get them, okay? But the sewing projects, the multimedia classes, the drawing classes, and the fundamentals classes. So we'll go through all of them and what they're doing this week. You can use the timestamps. If you're watching this live, there aren't timestamps. You just got to suffer through me. But if you're catching the replay, you can watch the timestamps and actually just pay attention to what's going on in your classes. Or you can, join me for 20 minutes and watch the whole thing. Yeah, coffee. Isn't this a cute mug? Yeah, it's so cute. I got it for Christmas from my staff because they're awesome. All right, so let's start with drawing classes. They are doing self-portraits and other portraits for the whole month, which, portraiture can kind of be intimidating, right? Because drawing people's hard. And so both our Drawing 101 and our Drawing 102 Advanced Realistic are working on portraiture. Now, the first week, they worked on self-portrait, which was a good thing to start with because if you screw up your own portrait and you look kind of silly, most people they don't feel too bad about that. When you're drawing somebody else, you're like, ooh, sorry. So this week, they actually got to draw friends, and it was super fun to get them across from one of their friends and actually get to draw their friends. Now, they have an advantage in 2021 and 2022 because when you're drawing self-portraits and portraits in the studio, half your face is covered by a mask. And it's a lot easier to draw a portrait when you can cover up half your face. So they are at a little bit of an advantage there. We do have some units where they will work from photograph, and then that way they can work on kind of the lower half of the face. But one of the important things they were working on was one, using all of the media that they used last month, right? Those were 101 students too, in case you were wondering. That last month they got an introduction in values and color using charcoal, chalk pastel, oil pastel, and pencil graphite, as well as ink. So those are kind of the drawing mediums that we use here in the studio and how to render line and value. And so they're using those skills now to do portraiture. This week, we got something a little different for them. It's still gonna be a portrait, but it's something that's called a blind contour drawing. Now, contour drawing just means that you're using line. It means you're getting all the lines. We're not doing shading. We're not doing values. We're doing line. And it's all about placement, right? So what's the distance between my hairline and the top of my eyebrow? What's the distance between the bottom of my nose and the middle of my eyes? What's the distance between the bottom of my nose and my ears? All of those relationships are what are so important in portraiture before we even start putting in shadows and values and shape and form, okay? So they're just getting in positioning. And so a contour drawing works on those things. A blind contour drawing means that you're going to draw it without looking at your paper. And it makes you focus on the eye-hand connection because you can't look down at it. You have to look at your subject and draw without looking at your paper. And we're going to get some super silly, crazy portraits. but it is a really great exercise. And even like really good artists do blind on contour drawing to train and practice their eyes and hands coordinating together. So they're going to learn that as an exercise that they can practice on their own, and they're going to get to do a lot of it in class. So it should be kind of a silly class. Hopefully, if you know your kid that gets frustrated because things are not perfect, this is going to be a challenge for them because it's not going to be perfect. It's going to look crazy and silly. And we just have to we have to appreciate it for what it is. It's an exercise that you're not supposed to get perfect at. Okay. So if your kid comes home frustrated, that's what you can tell them. All right. My 102 Advanced Realistic will also be doing blind contour. And then my 102 in anime and comic, they've been breaking down the pieces of the face. They're super excited because this week is hair. I mean, and drawing hair is super fun. So they will draw different hairstyles that they can use in both male and female characters, and have a library of hair that they can use when they're creating their own characters. So that's our Drawing 102 and Drawing 101 classes. Let's move on to multimedia because I got a lot that I want to share. We're going to start at the top and work our way down. So our middle school, high school, and 4th and 5th grade multimedia students who are doing printmaking have been carving into this soft cut to make their own block prints. And I brought a couple out of the closet. These are the first 3 at the top. So those kids that are watching, I didn't pick through and pick the best ones or anything like that. I just grabbed the first 3 so that I could show these parents what's going on. So you can see they designed their stamp on this 4x5 sheet of soft cut. It's kind of rubbery, like an eraser would be. And then they are using their carving tools to carve away the area that they don't want to print. Printmaking it's a brain teaser because you have to work in the negative space. You have to think, what do I not want? And that's what I work with. So they're carving away what they don't want to print, and they're leaving alone what they do want to print. So they're using these little fun tools, which I can't reach, but I showed them to you last week, right? That are kind of like a cuticle cutter. They have a little U shape to them, and you run them across the top, and you remove all these little it looks like shredded cheese when they do it. So I got a couple different ones here. They all designed different subjects. See the background there has been removed, right? And then also right in here has a texture to it. They carved away these circles. So when we print this, the circles, the dots on our toadstool will be white, or the color of the paper, but white, right? And the toadstool itself will be the color of the ink, because this is the positive space and this is the negative. Make sense? Here's one more to show you. Super fun little character. I thought this was so cool, you guys, because here's the hard part. You see this person, I don't have a name, or I'd call them by name. This person drew, right, a design and wants to print the black line that they drew. Well, if you want to print the black line that you draw, that means you have to carve everything else away on both sides of the line and all the negative space. And you can see that's exactly what they did. The only part that is raised is the Sharpie line. That's a lot of work, and it's really, really tricky to do. So super proud of that artist. They're going to print these. They'll start printing them in a quadrant on their paper. Some of them are ready to print starting this 3rd week. Some of them will take them to the 4th week by the time they print. And they might have to print a few times because printing is not a foolproof thing. You might print and it's not a good print. Didn't have enough ink, didn't have too much ink, and then it was squishy. Or maybe you'll print it and find out that you missed a spot carving it away. Then you got to wash your stamp and carve that spot away and print it again. So they have to get 4 clean prints on their quadrant for their finished piece of art. It's a big, big challenge for them. Now, my 2nd and 3rd graders, I did not grab a collagraph from the closet because it's all kind of still in pieces. But if you remember last week, I showed our Valentine's collagraphs that we did for practice and kind of showed you what it looked like. So they're building their own collagraph plate, unlike our middle school, high school, 4th, 5th grade students who are carving away and leaving their positive image. Our 2nd and 3rd grade students are building up their positive image. So they're starting with a flat surface and building on top instead of starting with the top surface and carving away. Just a different way of doing it. So their collagraph plates, I'll have something to show you next week. I do want to show you K1 though, and this is the one I'm going to demo on here. I brought printing ink, I brought the mandala plates, and I bought the embossing powder, which we've talked about a little bit, but if you haven't seen it, super cool. So I'm going to show it to you today. But let me show you their progress so far. So the first thing they had to do, if you remember, we talked about mono prints. So they have printed their mono print background. This was done on the jelly plates. This is what they did last week, right? And you can see it's got characteristics of printmaking that you just don't get in anything else. Look at all that fun texture and detail that came in the mono print. And then the tape just gives us a pretty white border. Because who doesn't love a white border? It also gives us something to hold on to when we have messy fingers, so fingerprints all over our work. Then we're going to layer something on top that is a relief print. Kind of like our second and third graders. They built up instead of carved away. So they have these fun pizza rounds. And they basically made themselves a pizza last week. And they use stickers. These are foam-shaped stickers to make a mandala. So it was a lot of work on symmetry and design. Everybody's was different. You see they divided their plates. Right? And then they worked in repeating patterns and symmetry to get whatever kind of design they wanted to get. And some of them, it was really cute. They're like, I really want an orange sticker. We're like, it doesn't matter because it's just a stamp. But some of them really get into their mandalas looking pretty. So you can see this one is such a fun pattern. I loved this one that I grabbed. I won't tell you names, but they're so fun. So I grabbed these two out of the closet. And I'm going to print one for you. And I'm not going to print it on a jelly mono print background because I don't have one made up. It'd have to dry and all that stuff. But I do have a big old piece of newsprint down here. And I have the mandala plate that Miss Akira made when she was testing out this project for us. So I'm going to roll ink on it. I'm going to print it here. And then I'm going to do the embossing powder so you can see what they're doing this week. So some of my K1ers are ready to print this onto their background and do the embossing powder. They'll get to do a practice print first, and then they'll do their final print. Some of them are still working on this design. Like, I don't know if this is finished. They might still add to it. So, but let me show you some printmaking. Are you ready? Come on down here. Come on down. All right. So here we go. I've got my plate. I've got my embossing powder. I've got my tray that I'm going to roll my ink on, and I got my paper that I'm going to print on. Now, I never want to roll my ink on my paper, so I'm going to roll it a little bit off to the side. Pardon me while I adjust. I didn't bring my big overhead camera for this, mostly because I'm on my laptop here, and my phone is the one that's usually my overhead camera. This is my webcam. All right. Ooh, it's like crusty. Just a sec. Get the crusties off. All right, so this is black printing ink. It's from Speedball. It's our favorite brand that we use. And I'm going to use a brayer. That's what this is. And I'm going to roll my black printing ink out. Now, you could do this. Traditionally, it's done on a glass plate. I don't know if you know this, but glass plates are breakable. So we do it on cookie sheets. Now, here's what I want you to hear. Can you listen to this? Listen. So that kissing noise, that's the noise you want to hear for printing ink. It's kind of sticky. And that's how you know you got the right amount of ink on the brayer, is you get the noise. So if you were on Facebook this last weekend and you saw a post that said, can you hear this picture? This is the sound. All right, now that you know, let's go ahead and ink our printing plate. So I'm going to roll ink all over. It doesn't matter what color ink we use either. I grabbed a bluey purple ink, but it really doesn't matter because when we print this, we're going to cover the entire thing with this embossing powder. So, okay, so that is completely covered. I'm going to slide you over just a little bit. Imagine this is their final, right? So then they're going to print it down, rub on the back. We also have a Baron. Where's my Baron? Here it is. This is my printing Baron. Okay, and then we lift up. While this is still wet, we're going to sprinkle it with this amazing, wonderful, gorgeous gold powder. We're not going to be shy about it either. We won't be shy about it with the kids. It doesn't use much in the final project, but it looks like it does. Like there's half a container, but most of this won't stick. It's just like glitter. So we'll shake off the excess. Give me a second I shouldn't have. Need a sheet of paper to put it on so I can put most of it back in the container. And then it's kind of a dull gold color. It's not very impressive as it is, but once I hit it with some heat, it really becomes very cool. So let me slide this beautiful gold powder back into my jar. See, now it's full again. That's what we want. Close her up. This is the cool part. So I'm going to put this kind of right there so you can see it. Yeah, can you see that? Here comes the good part. This is my heat gun. I probably won't be able to talk while I do this because, you know, it's pretty loud. So this is a teacher job too. When we do this in the studio, the kids will not be doing this part. Some of you can see when I hit it with the heat gun, it melts that powder and it turns it into a foil that has a raised texture to it. I got to move it over. My cord isn't long enough. Pardon me. I guess I could turn the camera. Isn't that cool? So we went from a really like dull powder to a raised gold foil, right? And I can, like, it's permanent on there. It's not coming off, but it is the coolest thing. So their final art, let me slide this back up. Put you back where you belong. Their final art will have this embossed gold, like mandala print on top of their jelly printed background. So hopefully that makes sense. So that'll be the step that some of them are ready to do this week. Some of them are still working on their mandalas, and they'll do that in week 4. Okay. I should also mention, now that we're like 3/4 of the way through my live video, that Monday classes are still 1 week behind the rest of the month. So Monday, people, because the month started on a Tuesday, everyone who has class today, you're a week behind. Go watch last week's video. So it's just how it works. I really like it when months don't start on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. That's the worst. All right. So that is multimedia classes, right? All sorts of printmaking stuff. We're going to be wrapping a lot of projects this week, and next week, of course, everybody will wrap. And then after that, we'll move along to March's projects, which are mixed media. So hopefully here soon, I'll get to show you mixed media projects. All right. Where are we at? What am I doing? Want to go on a field trip? Walk with me. Because I forgot to get the sewing stuff for you. So we're going to just walk through the studio. Come on. It's in here. Don't get dizzy. This is our second classroom. I don't usually film in here, but it's super cute. And this is where the sewing classes meet. So they keep all their stuff down here. It's like a secret spot. Let's see what we can find. I actually subbed sewing classes last week, so I know exactly what they did. So I'm gonna pull. These are their cute little sewing kits that they do such a good job taking care of, right? So I'll pull those out. They are making their heartstrings pillows. Oh, and so they worked last week. Let me sit down. Oh, so I don't have to squat. They worked last week on creating their composition. So they had to cut all their beautiful hearts out and start to stitch them in whatever arrangement they wanted. So this was like the traditional arrangement that I did on my example pillow that I made back in 2019, something like that. But you can see we've got all sorts of different, look at that one. That one's like a gradient or like an ombre. Cutting out the hearts, not easy. Look, this one, they stacked some of them. I love this one. This one's a heart of hearts. Some of them are super tiny. And then they had to sew them, of course. Some of our kids, depending on their composition, were able to sew in straight lines all the way down, and others had to stop and start. Got a couple more to show you. So these are just the fronts of the pillows. This one I love. It's horizontal. These kids are so clever. Here's another one. I like how this one reminds me of like garland. It's open at the bottom. It kind of gives me kind of an airy feel to it. And then I adore this one. So that one looks like confetti or balloons. All right. So those are their heart compositions. They had to cut all their own hearts, lay them out on their pillow front, and then get them sewn on. And oh my gosh, I cannot believe that they got all of that done in one class. So these guys are getting so good at sewing. This next week, they will work on putting it all together. Because we worked so fast on those, we might have some time for some hand embellishments. They've also been learning some embroidery stitches. And so we might get out the embroidery floss and let them sew on some buttons or sew on some like additional detail stitching. So that's what's coming up for them. Let's go back to the other room. Oh, and so they'll sew like, right sides together, put a pillow, stuff it. And then they're going to be learning a new hand stitch, which is incredibly useful. And it is a blind stitch in order to get the hole closed to the top of the pillow closed so that you don't see like the closures, right? So if we were to, even if we fold the hems in and then run it through the machine, that part of the pillow, you see the seam, right? Or if we hand sew it and we do it with a whip stitch, you still see that stitching. So we're going to teach them, especially for those that are ready for it. Maybe not everybody will be ready for it, but we want to give them the option to be able to learn how to do a blind ladder stitch to put both sides of the pillow together and hide that stitching completely, okay? So that's what's coming up for them. Sewing, drawing, mixed media, fundamentals. So my preschool classes are doing also figure and portraiture. This is their last week unless you're Monday. Okay, so if you come to Monday fundamentals in Plattwoods, you got one more after today. Okay, if you any other fundamentals class, this is your last week for the month of February. Don't come next week. We won't be here. Cool. So if you missed the class, make sure you sign up for a makeup because this was a really great month and we'd love to do it with you. We finished those big giant portraits last week. Like the big old figures that we got to like trace. Those are super fun. This week is kind of like the last hurrah for body art and like the face paint sticks and all that stuff. So we read You Ain't Gonna Paint No More, which if you haven't read it, you should. It's a super awesome, fun, playful book about a little boy who paints himself, and it rhymes, and it's such a fun read. So we adore reading it aloud to our kids. You can check out our stories today, thanks to one of our mamas who posted some videos to Instagram of the kids actually painting their bodies. That's an activity that we do with this book. For the ones that want it, it's not required, but I'm going to take some red and paint my head. No, I ain't going to paint no more is super fun. And if you see that and you're like, that's awesome, we do that class again in the summer, and you should definitely get on the wait list for that. So when registration opens, you can get your name in there. Okay. Did we talk about everybody? Drawing fundamentals, preschool. So yeah, we did. That was all of it. Okay, I got a couple housekeeping notes. One is that we are enrolling for March classes right now. So anybody who didn't get in at the beginning of the semester that now wants to join, there's a spring interest form on our website. So if you have friends that want to join us, or if you're watching this video and you're not in classes yet and you're like, oh, I've always wanted to do this, how do I get in? There's an interest form for you to fill out. What I want to say is most of our classes are full. Now, as a small business owner, that makes me pretty happy because it's been a ride, you guys, these last 2 years. So like, I'm pretty thrilled about that. Most of our classes are full. We teach 35 weekly classes. All but 10 are full. And the 10 that aren't full have like very few spots left in them. And so I know that if you're filling out that interest form and you're like, I wanted to get in, but she says they're full. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about the classes that aren't full. And I'll probably post these on the website. just so people can narrow it down. Are you ready? So Liberty has room in their multimedia homeschool class on Tuesdays at 2, in their K first grade multimedia class on Tuesdays at 5. Those are the only 2 multimedia classes that have room. Liberty has room in 2 fundamentals classes, the Tuesday and the Thursday one. So if you have a preschooler and you want to join, there's not a lot of spots available, but we could take a few more. And then they have room on their Wednesday night comic and anime class at 7:30. So those are those. Ready? Plattwoods. Plattwoods has room in 3 multimedia classes. Mondays K1, Mondays 2nd, 3rd, and Tuesdays K1. All the other multimedias are full. They also have room on their drawing class. So Liberty didn't have room for any drawing classes. They're full, unless we get a cancellation, which could happen, right? Because spring sports are going to start here pretty soon. Baseball, soccer, all the things, and practice gets scheduled, and you didn't even know practice was going to be on a Thursday night. So I totally get it. But we do have room in Plattwoods for a drawing class. So Tuesday nights. And then it's Drawing 101. And then they also have room Tuesdays for a toddler art and play class. So those are the only classes that have spots in them. Everything else is full. If I'm talking to you and your kids are in classes, I don't want you to feel bad about that at all. That makes me super happy that we're full. It also tells me that we need to expand the schedule next year. And we know that. Sarah and I have already met about it. We've already talked about it. We've had very creative discussions about adding classrooms, changing class times, leasing a new space. Like, we talked all about all the things. Like, so we have a solution. Hopefully it's not always full. But just bear with us while we adjust and have a wonderful problem. So if you do have a kiddo in multimedia classes or drawing classes or fundamentals classes, as we head into spring, if they have a conflict with the sport, a practice, they make the school play, like whatever it is, if you let us know about that, we can talk about like moving you to a class or canceling your classes or putting them on pause or whatever it is. And that allows us to pull somebody off the wait list. So if you'll just stay in communication with us on that, the more time you can give us, the better. If you already know that soccer practice interferes with March schedule, you can email me now and we'll talk through how we make that happen. Okay. And that really helps us out because I hate turning people away and putting people on wait lists. And I really like to give them a spot. Okay. All right. So that's a little bit about classes. My last Post-it note on housekeeping is just a couple reminders. Spring break camps, we're registering. We are full, except for the Thursday camp in Plattwoods for sweet treats. Other than that, they are all full. You can get your name on the wait list for them. And if we get a cancellation, we will let you know. In these times, cancellations happen. And they usually happen pretty last minute. So be ready for that. Might get you a text like the night before or the morning of. And if you can jump in the car and get up here, spot is yours. And then the last reminder is just another reminder on summer. So summer registration for Studio Club members starts on March 1st. Summer registration for everyone else starts on March 15th. Okay. Put a reminder on your calendar. Because it makes me sad when we get to April and people are like, why is it full? And I'm like, I tried. I told you in every way possible. So put a reminder on your phone because it makes me sad when my favorite people miss out. Okay. All right. And you all are my favorite people. Thinking if there's anything else. I don't think there is. So I hope everybody here has a very happy Valentine's Day. I know I'll see a lot of you guys in the studio this week. And then, we are in the home stretch, you guys, of this semester. It is downhill from here. It is like smooth sailing, March, April, May, with some super fun projects and curriculum here in the studio and then in the summer. So hold on tight. See you guys soon.